All right, good afternoon, everybody. It is Monday, June 1st, 2015. Yes, it's June already. Where has the summer gone? This is Admissions Live, kicking off our June series of shows. Very busy week on Higher Ed Live this week. We've got 5 live shows this week. It's a very exciting week, and we'll talk about that at the end of the show. Admissions Live is, of course, part of the Higher Ed Live network. We offer live webcasts each week for professionals in higher education. Recorded shows and podcasts, always free and available for you both in our archives at HigherEdLive.com as well as in podcast form via iTunes. So if you like what we sound like but you don't want to look at us, you can do that too. Our live broadcast here allows viewers to share knowledge and participate in discussions around the most important issues in the country. Share your insights, and you can ask questions on Twitter using the HigherEdLive hashtag. Today's show would not be possible without support of my colleagues here at Stony Brook University, as well as our producer, M. Stoner. M. Stoner is a marketing and communications firm that works with education institutions on branding, strategy, web design, and more. Join M. Stoner's co-founder and CEO, Michael Stoner, on June 9th for a free webinar on using experience maps to improve both promise and process. Experience maps can lead to insights by illustrating what audiences think, feel, and do at various stages in a process, and we just tweeted out a link where you could register for that next week. Admissions Live is also sponsored by Chegg Enrollment Services. Chegg connects the nearly 80% of college-bound students researching schools across the web and college with the colleges and universities who are trying to reach them. Using an online platform that includes 10 of the most popular college search sites online, Chegg can help you save over 90% on the cost of traditional methods for generating your inquiry pool. And you can email outreach@chegg.com, or you can tweet them at Social Admission for more information. So as I said, it's summer and commencement is done and summer sessions are in full swing, and it's time now, as we sort of turn the page on the for many of us on the admission side of the house, to fall 2016, our class of 2020, if you will, as terrifying as it is to think that far in the future, and what we're doing with our visit programs and how we are working with our visiting students and their parents and their families and all those kinds. And hey, both of my guests are here. Fantastic. I stalled long enough for both of the guests to show up. Fantastic. So my guests today are members of CIVSA, which is the Collegiate Information and Visitor Services Association. CIVSA is a fantastic organization that helps offices like ours, like yours probably, figure out exactly what it is we're doing with all these visiting students. You know, we do information sessions and we do tours and we do all the things that we do, and why reinvent the wheel when there's great information and great resources already out there? Their conference is in Nashville a little later on this week, and so I would like to introduce Cindy Singley and Jamie Engelhart from, and I'm going to switch up your schools. It's Auburn and Arizona State, in that order.
That order. That order.
Yes, mission accomplished. This is what happens when I don't write stuff down. See, I'm good with my notes. Sometimes I forget to write stuff down. So, so take a second, if you would, to introduce yourselves and who you are and what you do and your affiliation with the organization.
Great. Well, hi, Chris. Thanks for having us on this morning. I'm Cindy Singley, Director of University Recruitment at Auburn University, but I'm here in Nashville is my role with CIVSA. As currently serving as the president of the association. We're thrilled to be in Nashville. We'll be welcoming about 500 of our conference attendees in just a couple of days to Nashville to talk about the visitor experience within higher education.
And I'm Jamie Engelhart. I am the Assistant Director of Campus Experience and Welcome Center at Arizona State University's Tempe campus. And I am right now serving as President-elect of CIVSA.
Cool. Well, welcome to both of you and best wishes with the conference this week. So let's talk a little bit about the information session and the tour. And I know this is going to be obvious for all of the enrollment folks who are watching this, but why is the visitor experience so important for us on college campuses?
Well, Chris, we feel like at Auburn, and I think probably everyone feels this way about their institution, if we can get them to our campus, we've got them. We can talk about how wonderful our various institutions are, but until you see it and feel it and get to meet our people, I think that really makes the difference for folks. They can then begin to begin to see themselves within our campus environment. Certainly the admissions information session allows us to talk about the nuts and bolts of the application process and help the families through that process. And then when they go on our campus tours with our currently enrolled students and see their enthusiasm for their universities and their institution and the traditions and the spirit and all of that, I think that really hits home with a lot of prospective students and families.
You know, I think that's really what it comes down to. And as I said, it's sort of obvious. You want to get people on your campus, and every stat out there, the students who visit your campus are that much more likely to enroll and to be become a part of your campus. And so that visitor experience, yeah, as you said, so very important. So how can we do things better? Let's just throw it out there. So what sort of innovative things are you seeing out there from your friends and colleagues?
I think some of the big things are making sure that you're highlighting things that make your campus unique. So at Arizona State, we are very big with our current students for skateboards or longboards. So we've developed a skateboard tour of campus where my tour guides will take prospective students and families on a route of campus on a skateboard, whether they've ever been on a skateboard or not, and they have a blast and they love it. And that, you know, is just one way that we kind of highlight one of the things that's particular at ASU.
Skateboard tour. So how did you come up with the idea of doing skateboard tours? Because I love the heck out of that. And it's funny.
I didn't know that.
It's very hit or miss on the skateboard thing, but so I love the idea.
So the idea originally stemmed from our vice provost and our executive director a few years ago. They had seen, I believe it's Alberta in New York, has a 5-person like bike tour. So they saw that and they're like, okay, well, could we do something along the lines? Like, could we do something like that? And then they took a look at, you know, our students, and many of my tour guides do skateboard around campus to get to class and everything else. We actually have on campus with all of our buildings now skateboard racks, so not just bicycle racks, but we have skateboard racks on campus. That's how many students we have that skateboard or longboard around campus. And so they came to me with the idea and they said, do you think you can make this work? And I said, probably. So I worked with my president of my tour guide group at the time, and him and I worked with our general counsel to come up with, you know, what the route would be like, where we needed to walk on campus as opposed to riding and stuff like that. And it took us about 6 months to kind of get it all figured out. But once we did, we got it up and going, and it's a lot of fun, and it's a lot of fun to see. So last spring we had a family. So the daughter was the one that was interested in ASU. It was her little brother, mom, and dad, and all of them went on the skateboard tour. And I actually had a conversation with them ahead of time, and I was like, just so you know, you don't have to. You know, we can throw you on the walking portion, and, you know, if your students just want to go on the skateboard. And mom was like, nope, we're going out, we're going to do it. I was like, okay, we'll be ready for you.
That is fantastic. I love the heck out of that, and I'm like frantically scribbling notes. Like there's no way we could do that here. And as much as I would love to do that, there's no way we could do that. Although it's funny, like you mentioned the bike thing, we have either a 6 or 8 seat like circular bike that our sustainability folks have, and I think maybe we need to start borrowing it and doing different creative kinds of things. So I think it's funny that your provost came up with that, and that wasn't just a student like your tour guide saying, "Hey, we want to give tours on skateboards." So, so how do we, how do you build that sort of innovation into your tour program, and how, if you have that kind of a crazy idea, how do you get that past maybe higher ups who do not see the value in doing something different like that?
I'm going to let Jamie take that one because you've had firsthand experience. And one thing I want to know, do they have to sign a waiver?
They do.
That was my next question. Exactly.
So in the whole process of this, I actually got some skateboards and safety equipment purchased by the institution. So either they can sign one waiver if they bring their own equipment, or they sign another waiver if they're going to be using ASU's equipment. So yes, there is a waiver that needs to be signed by everyone. Our tour guides who are giving the tours actually have to sign a waiver themselves as well. And that's just for everyone's safety. And I mean, I think that sometimes it's just, I feel like at ASU, it's kind of ingrained in us that we're always trying to think of the next step ahead of everyone else, if that makes sense. So we're always trying to continually reach out of that box and say, okay, what is the craziest thing that we can think of? And can we make that work? And so I think that that's kind of what happened with this, is I think that they were trying to figure out what other type of tour we could give and try to figure out, well, what would that look like? Because we also didn't want to do exactly what someone else was already doing. So, we kind of looked at that, and we also have some sustainability programs and everything. And so I think over the last 5 years that I've been there, I mean, our visit program has changed immensely. And every year I feel like we're continually trying to tweak it to make it better for the students. We just opened our brand new Welcome Center this past fall. And with that, over the last summer, I had spent all summer with my students coming up with brand new tour routes. So now we have college specific tour routes instead of just general tours like we used to give. So now it's getting a little bit more specific, and some of that comes from some of our visitors' feedback. So they want to see the buildings that they're going to be having classes in. They want to see where exactly that's going to be, as opposed to where they're going to be living. Yes, they want to see the rec area. They want to see the union where they can eat, stuff like that, what a classroom would look like. But now we're trying to take that a step further and get a little bit more particular as to what we're showing everyone.
Chris, I think Jamie's point is well taken. It really answers your question earlier of how do you come up with these ideas, where do they come from? And it's by listening to the students and trying to be relevant to where they are at this particular time. The student from 20 years ago is not the same student that we have on campus today. And so I think that's so smart that you're listening to the students, reading the evaluations, survey them, see what they liked about your tour, what they didn't like about your tour, and then how can you make that better and more relevant.
Yeah, and if you've got a skateboard friendly campus, if you've got the racks, then yeah, that makes a ton of sense. And I want to go back to something you mentioned about sort of those sort of college-based tours, because Arizona State, I'm assuming you're reasonably large like we are, and so it's hard to get that sort of one-size-fits-all into the tours. We have a large College of Engineering, but it's hard to show labs on a campus tour the way that we currently have our tours designed. But we get a lot of questions about, hey, how can I'm a future engineer. I want to see what the labs are going to look like. And you really want to try to cater that experience as much as you can to what students and families are looking for and what their experience is going to be when they get to your campus. So it's so important.
In order to show those things as well, we have what we call academic sessions. So after the tours, we drop the families off at the different colleges, and that's where they can showcase and highlight the things in their particular areas. So that's where they would get to see some of the labs and stuff like that, not necessarily on our tour.
And we do something similar. We don't drop them off, but on our campus visit website, there are links to the various colleges and schools, and our larger schools, engineering, business, architecture, some of those that are more highly specialized, will go ahead and set tour times, hopefully that complement with our tour schedules so that students can do both, the campus tour as well as the academic tours.
Now, how do you get, I'm assuming you've got to have some amount of departmental faculty buy-in on this kind of, these kinds of programs where you're really getting down to the nitty-gritty, and we've done a lot of that with some of our more niche kinds of programs that are looking to grow enrollment. We'll do a marine science day, or we'll do a journalism day where we take folks in and really show them the full experience. But having faculty buy-in to the admissions process is so very important.
Mm-hmm. I have a coordinator in my office that manages campus partner relationships. So she makes sure they know what our schedules are, both for our recruitment days, preview days, yield events, and so forth. But we also have 2 times a year that we have just thank you events where we invite them over for breakfast. We sit and talk, what's gone well, what do you know, how are things working with you? So we try to keep those lines of communication open. And I think they appreciate it and feel like they're part of the process of creating the campus experience, campus visit experience for our students.
Yeah, and we have recruiters that are specific for each of our colleges at ASU as well. And so I work very closely with all of them to make sure that, you know, we have coverage for all of our visit stuff. If we have new ideas, we're kind of working together on all of that as to how it'll work, what's the best. Because a lot of times too, I'll have the colleges come to me with ideas and say, hey, we're thinking about doing this. How do we incorporate into the daily visit program, or can we, you know, do this in one of your other large scale events and stuff like that? So as Cindy said, I think it's really big on the communication between everyone and them understanding too how important their role is in helping us to recruit those students.
Okay. So sort of to switch gears a little bit, what do you have you found is the best way to sort of get the information out? I mean, is it just a PowerPoint? Is it, you know, from a sort of a tech perspective, is it a student talking to the group? You know, we've gone from hour and 15-minute information sessions down to half an hour information sessions, and sort of everywhere in between. We've done PowerPoints, we've done prezzies, we've done videos, we've done all sorts of things. You know, what's new, what's innovative? Like, what are schools doing now to be different, to be distinct?
I think we can both talk about what we do at our institutions. We do some of all of the above, if you will. We do a 30-minute admission sessions. It starts with a little video just to sort of warm up the group. Then there is a PowerPoint so that we make sure that regardless of who's doing the admission session, they're staying on track to include all of the key elements of the admissions process, scholarships, and the facts and figures and brag points about our university. And we try to really hit the academic portions during that part of the session where we have a professional admissions advisor. And then when they go on the campus tour, that's where we want the student to bring in the campus experience. And what we want them to tell their personal stories about being on campus. I think that's an important part to make the student, the prospective student, feel like, well, I can see myself doing, you know, being a part of this campus. So we do it both with PowerPoint presentations, videos, professionals, and then culminating with our students. We think the students get the best part of the story.
Agreed.
And then similar, we just changed our presentation. It is a half an hour as well. The first part is our admissions counselor going over some general information about ASU, and then we actually bring in a student. They talk about our My ASU page, because that's the portal that students see all of their application, where their application's at in the process. That's also what they use when they are a student at ASU. So the students talk about, they have 3 different slides, and we do use Prezi too, before I forget to mention that, but we use Prezi. And so they have 3 different slides on there that they talk about, and they just have to talk about 3 different things that they know about. So, you know, there's a lot of information on those slides, but again, it's just kind of what the student has utilized. So giving that perspective, like, oh, I go into my finances and this is where I have all my scholarship and financial aid information and stuff like that. And then once they have been admitted, they tell them what they need to do from there, and kind of what the screen looks like for that. Then the admissions counselor will kind of finish up with the admissions criteria. We do have a fun video that we show at the end of that, and then that's when the tour starts. So then we'll go out with the students and again get more of that student perspective.
You know, it's funny that you mentioned the sort of the screenshot of the student information systems, because we put that into our session 2 years ago, because we realized that was one of the biggest questions we were getting, was how do you actually interact with the system, because high school students aren't doing it. But you're right, they need from everything from paying your deposits all the way through graduation, all happens in our online system. And just a matter of getting a couple of screenshots up there allows them to see, oh, hey, this is what I'm looking at, this is what I'm looking for. So yeah, don't rule out what seems like boring stuff. Like, I know we want to have big full color pictures and nice diverse photos of students and all that, but sometimes the real practical stuff is just as important as the fancy stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So, Jamie, I'm going to steal your thunder about one of the workshops you're doing this week. I want to talk about assessment and evaluating what you're doing, because you mentioned sort of survey data and all that kind of stuff. How do we evaluate what we're doing with our prospective students when they visit?
So I think a lot of it is just looking at all of the different entities and all of those involved. So we've kind of touched on, making sure that communication is open with our college representatives and anyone else, any faculty members, anything like that, and making sure that we're getting feedback from them on a regular basis as to what they're seeing, what they feel works for them, what might not, because every college is going to be a little bit different. Every college attracts different types of students, so we want those to be personalized. And also looking at the evaluations for our students. So we've gone back and forth many times on, do we do electronic, do we do paper, do we do electronic? We are back to paper, and what we do is we incentivize it. So my tour guides take out wristbands on their tour with them, and at the end of their tour, they ask for the survey in exchange for the wristband, so that the student is still getting, a little extra takeaway, and then we're still able to get that information on how we're doing on the tours. We also stopped doing Likert scales on our surveys, because we've noticed that a lot of people will just circle whatever, just to get it done, and if they like it, great, they circle all 5s. If they don't like it, they circle all 1s, and then they don't tell us why. So we've really looked at, kind of like short answer questions on ways that we can improve, or things that they expected maybe to see at our visit that they hadn't. And then, looking at all of that and making sure that everyone who's invested is kind of seeing what feedback we're getting, and then being able to try to modify that. We, this year, for example, we tried what we called a concierge service. So in one of our buildings, we have financial aid, the registrar, admissions, career services, everything like that is all in one building. And we're like, okay, we always get students who have questions about financial aid and housing and everything else. Let's try to maybe give them some sort of fast pass during a certain time frame of their visit and get them the help that they're needing. So we tried that out this year. Most likely we will only do it in the spring for next year, just because of volume. I don't know about you, Cindy, but we don't see the number of students in the fall that we do in the springtime. So, and the type of student who's coming in the spring is a little bit different from those who come in the fall as well. So we wanted to make sure that they're getting the help that they need, and it's, that the current students who are there can also get the help that they need. So a lot of our departments that have been part of that this year had a specific staff member who was kind of there for that time frame, and their sole purpose was to help our prospective students who were coming for a visit. So, I think that some of that, again, is trial and error. Yeah. We tested it. I just got feedback from some of the departments who were involved, most of which very positive, some of which they didn't feel like they really saw anyone at all. And so that'll be something that, I look at to say, okay, maybe, students don't have these questions yet. And, because this year we involved student organizations and fraternity and sorority life, and they really didn't get a lot of traffic. So we may just need to, make sure that they have that information and they know where to go if there are a few people who want to go do that. But they won't necessarily be part of that concierge time in the future.
I want to address the question, the point that you brought about the difference between fall visits and spring visits, because there definitely is a different look to our fall tours, where it's almost entirely seniors who have not applied yet, and whereas spring, at least here, we get an interesting mix of students who have either been admitted or who are in somewhere in the application process in some capacity, and sort of the early bird 11th grade students who are looking at this maybe for the first time, and the challenge of speaking to all of those groups at the same time, plus transfer students who are sort of fed in there too. How do you differentiate between all the different populations that you're trying to serve with, can you do it in one session, or how do you differentiate between all those different groups?
Chris, one thing we've done, we don't differentiate our sessions. I think that's a great idea and something that we're looking at. But we introduced a campus concierge a little bit differently. I have someone in my office that her job is to mix and mingle with the group to sort of see who is who. And when we have those seniors coming in February and certainly in March, we focus a little bit more at, you know, if they're coming in and they're interested in, say, vet medicine, well, have you had a chance to visit the vet school? If not, let me make an appointment for you. Try to really dig a little deeper with those folks on an individual basis as much as you can. With the numbers of visits that both Jamie and I have on both of our respective campuses are fairly large. But we try to individualize it that way. And when we have folks that we know it's a decision visit rather than a prospective visit, then we try to get them to the right people to help close the deal, if you will.
And we do, oh, sorry.
No, sorry, go ahead.
We do specific sessions for specific populations. So I do on Monday, Thursdays, and Fridays, we divide out high school juniors and seniors, because even if they may be in a different point in the process, they're still the ones that are most likely going to be the most interested in what you're talking about. And then we have our Tuesday, Wednesday are kind of our free-for-alls. So that's anyone. So transfer students are included in that. And we are also looking at now too this year, trying out just doing a few transfer only sessions. That would be, you know, later on in the day and possibly a Thursday, Friday. And I'm going to start working with our transfer reps that we have in our office to coordinate those to make sure, because we know some of the transfer students will want to see, you know, they'll want to tour campus, they'll want to do that, but a lot of them want to meet with their academic advisor. They want to know, you know, what's going to transfer in. They have very particular questions that we can't always answer in those general sessions.
That was a, I'm getting feedback. Are you hearing that beeping that I'm hearing?
I am, and you're not, Chris, I don't think you're not using our microphone, are you?
No. All right, now we're back. Okay, that was weird. The transfer thing is a good point. We did that as well. We actually had a consultant come in to sort of analyze our processes of things. And they basically told us that they had no idea how we were enrolling transfer students because we weren't doing anything for them. And they were coming anyway. Like we had this incredibly high yield rate. And for us, it's a lot of location for us. But and so we started doing transfer sessions where we encourage small groups of transfers to come with their unofficial or official transcripts. And then while they're doing the sort of PowerPoint question and answer session, we're in the back, you know, scrabbling together credit evaluations. And then after the session, we've got counselors who are available to meet with them one-on-one and say, okay, here's what you've taken, here's how it transfers in, all those kinds of things, to sort of do some more one-on-one stuff. And they filled up. Every time we open one, it fills up within a couple of days with prospective students. So wildly successful for us, and you know, for the convenience for us is we've got one of the largest community colleges in the state, literally right down the street. So we have a lot of it's a big feeder for us, and that knowing that that's important, we were able to really cater something to that group in a way that really makes sense for them. All right, cross that off. Good. All right, so tracking. I want to ask about tracking. How do you track the students that do visit campus? And we talked about the survey piece, but just purely from a tracking perspective, statistical analysis, all that stuff.
We use Talisma as our CRM. So every visit goes into Talisma, every event they attend, every piece of mail that they receive, and then we can download analytics, if you will, from that to see, hopefully to determine what's working and what's not working, and then modify accordingly. And then our surveys are used really to modify our programs more so than actually doing an analytics on the surveys and so forth. But they're doing more just modifying the programmatic aspects of our visit.
And we just transitioned away from Talisma into Salesforce. So we have Salesforce that does the same type of thing. We're able to track everything that's going on with the students, where they're at in the application process and everything like that. And that helps our marketing team to know what information they should be sending them and stuff like that too. Obviously, you don't want to send a student who's already been to campus an email saying, hey, come visit. You know what I mean? They would get something different. So.
Yep. Yeah, we're a Hobsons Connect school, and so there's a bunch of different options for you. And the way that our program changed and the way we communicate with students changed so significantly. And the nice thing about the way we've really built it over the last several years is once you sort of get the system set up the way you want it, it really kind of runs itself, which is good. We can just sort of keep feeding students in there, and we're really able to craft the messaging that we want to craft depending on where they are in the process and where they're from and majors and all those kinds of things. So tracking is so very important to really sort of customize the experience. So I want to talk about the conference this week. You start on Wednesday?
Start on Wednesday, and then we have a pre-conference tour at Belmont University, and then our opening session with the Vice Provost for Enrollment Management, Doug Christiansen, at Vanderbilt University. So that will be our kickoff event. We're excited to finally be here. We've been planning this for about a year, so it's so much fun to actually be here and watch things start to happen.
What is your, we're heading into summer conference season now, and so you're this week, and here in New York, SUNY Quad, which is all the advancement folks, is this week, and then next week there's a bunch of the admissions conferences, and HigherEdWeb is next week. So lots of conference. This is conference time of year for a lot of us. What is your advice for someone who, say, is a first timer coming to a conference like CIVSA? What's your recommendation to really make the most of that experience?
Well, certainly the educational programming, but I think the networking among the membership, just by nature of who we are, visitor services, we're hospitality folks. So we like to talk, we like to share, we like to network. So part of our conference, we break down, in addition to the educational program, we break down the entire attendee groups into smaller groups. And because we're in Nashville, we're calling them CMAs. It stands for CIVSA Member Alliance rather than Country Music Association, but we thought we'd borrow on that theme. But we break them down into smaller groups based on institutional size and various other demographics so that they can really get to know each other and really get to share and connect. So we try to do that through the small group educational sessions. We try to do that through social events. We have a first timers event on Wednesday evening. So those attendees for whom it's their first conference, we invite them to get together and get to know each other, get to know our board, and just sort of begin to feel a part of the whole conference experience.
And I think a big thing too for first timers, especially if you're coming with someone else from your institution, whether they're also a first timer or whether they've been at CIVSA before, is divide and conquer. You know, we have more educational sessions this year than what we've ever had in the past. And there's so many that it's like, oh, which one do I pick? Right. But if you're coming with someone else, you can be like, okay, you go to that one, I'll go to this one. Then we'll meet up after and kind of figure out what information we're able to take back with us to share with everyone else. Because there's always that herd mentality where it's like, well, I came with you, so I'm going to stick with you the whole time. And I just think that there's so much more that people can get out of it if they do divide up and try to just get a taste of everything that's going on.
I think what Jamie's touched on is so important, not just from the educational standpoint, but from the social aspects, because if you do operate in that herd mentality, you may go back home and you say, well, I didn't meet anybody. Well, it's because you stayed with your group the entire, you ate with them, you went to these sessions with them, you sat with them in the social events and so forth. So that is so important, to just get outside your comfort zone a little bit. It won't take you long at a conference like this to make a lot of friends that you'll see annually, which is part of the great fun of a conference like CIVSA.
Very good point. And I got to say, so I downloaded the workshops, the PDF with the list of workshops, and you mentioned the campus size thing. Now, I don't know if it's in your final program or if it's just in the online PDF, but you had the presenter's name and their school, and it actually had the size of the campus listed.
Right.
Which I think is a really important point. It's easy to get caught into, oh, well, of course, Arizona State does all sorts of cool stuff because they're big and they have lots of money and they can do those kinds of things. My freshman class is 150 students. How can I do those kinds of things? And sometimes it can be really instructive to get a differing perspective there, not just your small school perspective, but also the big school's perspective and vice versa, because you don't know where those ideas, those little gems of inspiration will come from. And so you may be a big school, but you're hearing from a small program, a small school somewhere, and you can say, you know what, our sustainability program could really benefit from that sort of a visit experience in the microcosm of the bigger visit experience that we're doing. So, but I love the campus size piece in your PDF. I don't know if that's a real thing or not, but I loved it.
Yeah, it is. It is. It's in our brochure, and that's also too from feedback from our members and from those who have attended conferences, because they want to know. They want to know who's like them, who's different from them. One other thing, though, too, is that over the years that I've been coming to the CIPSA conference, I've gone to some institutions of similar size, so some larger school presentations and some smaller school presentations. And in the smaller school presentations, I always felt like I always got a lot out of that. And it wasn't because I could do what they were doing, but it was like, okay, I can't do that, but I bet I could do something like this. Right. And I would still be able to, make it more individualized for us, because being one of the largest schools in the nation, we are constantly, fighting you're not just a number, right? You are an individualized student and stuff like that. And, we do have limited resources just like everyone else does as well. And so it's like, okay, how can I take these different things? And I might not be able to do it the same way, but I know I could probably do this or that. What's also really cool too is I feel like those of us who have kind of rivals that we compete against, here at CIPSA, that doesn't exist. Like it does during the school year when we're not at CIPSA, but I have, colleagues at the U of A who have been coming to CIPSA now for the last couple of years, and we always talk about, okay, well, how are you guys dealing with this? Or what are you doing about this? Because also every state has different things that they're dealing with. So it's kind of nice to be able to set that rivalry aside for the week and really talk about what we're doing and learn from each other.
I think that's so very important, and we certainly deal with that here in New York, being part of a large state system where we go to conferences and it's in some cases it's all competitors, and we're arguing over a limited number of students, it seems like, but there are great ideas that can be had and can be shared, and that's okay. It's okay to share ideas. And I feel like that's come up a lot in the last several months on the show with different topics and things. Just because a competitor school is doing something or not doing something, that it's okay. Like we're all part of the same, higher ed field for a reason. And the sharing is so very important. And that's ultimately what the conference experience is all about. So take advantage of that.
Right, and Chris, at the end of the day, I think all our objectives for all of our institutions is that the student find the right fit for them, whether it be at our institution or a competitor institution. Though we always hate to lose to we have a U of A too in the state of Alabama, and so though we always hate to lose to that competitor, we want the student to win. And so I think if you keep that in mind, you really aren't competitors really with anyone. You're out there providing the best experience for a prospective student and their family, and then allowing them to make that choice that's right for them.
That's exactly it. All right, so we are up on time. I do want to thank both Cindy and Jamie for joining me on the show this afternoon, and best wishes with the conference this week. Up next on HigherEdLive on Wednesday, Heather Shea Gasser will talk about supervising do's and don'ts in student affairs, and so ways you can supervise better. And later on this week, we've got a bunch of live sessions from SUNY Quad. Quad is our State University of New York advancement and development folks and communications and outreach, and they'll be doing a bunch of live stuff, including live workshop, live presentation from SUNY Chancellor Nancy Zimpher. So lots of great stuff coming this week in HigherEdLive, and you can follow along for all of that stuff on HigherEdLive.com. And I appreciate you spending some time with us this afternoon. Enjoy your summer. My co-host Nicole Lentini will be back in 2 weeks. And until then, I'm Chris Dorso, and this has been HigherEdLive at HigherEdLive.com.